Hello everybody, James with Love My Pups. So you've noticed that I've got a mark on my nose. We have had the worst ice storms that I've experienced in my life. 5 days without electricity and no baths or anything, so it's been rough. Anyway, but here we are finally getting back to answering some of your questions. So somebody's asked, I've got a brindle that carries blue, and I'm going to mate to a blue Merle. Will I get straight blues or blue brindles? Well, the answer is first off, since you're breeding to a Merle, half the puppy overall are going to be Merles. And then since this girl is a brindle that carries blue, half the litter are going to be blue, and some of those are going to be blue brindles. And the ones that aren't blue are either going to be brindles or fawns. So to cut it in a nutshell, if you had 4 puppies, I'd expect you to get a blue Merle, a brindle Merle, a fawn, a brindle, and a blue. Okay. Somebody's asking that their dog ovulated on the 27th. When is their due date? Right, this is a really simple little rule that I use when people ask me about due dates. What I do is I ask the date of the first AI, and whatever date that was, I then roll forward 2 months to the same day of the month. So for instance, if their puppies were born on October, if their puppies were AI'd, first AI October the 1st, then 2 months forward, November, December the 1st is the first expected due date. Very, very simple. And that it works out to, in most cases, because of there's 30 and 31 days in a month, in most cases that works out to 61 days from their AI date. So if you want to do the actual math, counting the day that they were AI, it is 61 days from AI, or 63 days from ovulation. It should have been about 2 days earlier. So just a simple rule of thumb, take the date, roll it forward 2 months, that's the date you'd expect to have puppies. Very, very simple. Okay, somebody's asked and said they'd like to add Merle to their lineup. Should I buy one or should I breed one? Well, I mean, it's really half dozen of one or 6 of the other, isn't it? If you breed to a Merle, half the litter's going to be Merles. I like that solution because you've got hopefully quite a few dogs to choose from, and you keep the one with the great structure that's got the colour that you want. Plus, you know a little bit more about the DNA and the structure of the dogs that produce that puppy. So for me, I always look at all the puppies that I produce, and if I have a very special puppy in there, I keep it. Not necessarily for the studs though, because for me it means that they're related to some of my other studs, and that's not such a good deal. So, you know, some of these questions can be answered based on, do you have other dogs? Are they going to be related to them? Do you want to go outside your breed lines to get other bloodlines in there? So, you know, there's not a straight answer to this, but either one's fine. Somebody's asking about, says their girl's been in heat now for 3 weeks, and their male dog is going nuts. So I'm guessing they probably are not breeding the dog, and they're concerned about how long will this go on for. Well, this is all over the place. I mean, some dogs are receptive at day 7, and some dogs are still receptive at day 20. So anything from a week to 3 weeks is quite normal. So if you don't want to get your dog pregnant, or you don't want an unwanted pregnancy to the wrong dog, you've got to keep that dog inside and away from other dogs for at least until day 20, and probably longer than that to be safe. So, you know, what I would do here is I would base this somewhat on, you know, how your dog is behaving, how it's behaving towards other dogs. But err on the side of caution, keep that dog inside for a while. Someone's asking if the colour genetics I'm talking about work for other breeds. For the most part, yes. So, absolutely for Frenchies and English and Bullies, absolutely the same stuff all the way across the board. For other dogs, there are some other colours in there that you don't see in Frenchies. So I'm not an expert on that. I mean, for instance, if you look at things like Labradors that I used to raise, you know, Labradors don't have the Harlequin or the Merle colours in there. They don't have the pied colours in there. So obviously there are some differences in terms of what you can expect to happen. But genetics are genetics, and typically the way that I'm showing things on the board, the whiteboard, those things as far as how the genetics work for dominant genes and recessive genes and using the Punnett squares, that all holds true for other dogs. Somebody removed the dew claws on their dogs, presumably they're about 3 to 5 days old, and they used a razor. So what they used, presumably, is they used a hemostat to clamp the dew claws, and then they used a razor to cut them off. That is absolutely not what you want to do. That will bleed like crazy. What you should be doing is you should be using, the old nail to basically slough off the dew claw over the top of the jaws of the forceps. Look at the video that I've got on that. I've got a couple of videos showing how to do it. But do not use scissors, don't use a razor, you don't want a clean cut. I know it sounds crazy, but those things will bleed like crazy, and I think will cause more stress to the dog, to the puppy. If you do it the way I'm showing, puppies, let out a yelp when you put the hemostats on them, and the moment you remove the hemostats, they stop and they're happy little clams. Now, I get lots of people saying it's cruel and horrible, but I can tell you I've done it lots of times. I have never ever run into a problem with either it not healing up very quickly or a dog settling down very quickly after we finish the process. This person says, I bred my dog between day 11 and 30 with no pups, no puppies. And then she says, I had a white discharge 2 or 3 days later. Okay, well, what's going on here is, any time that you AI a dog, you're introducing foreign material into the dog, ultimately, hopefully, to get it up into the dog's uterus. It is quite possible, and it happens quite often, that you get infection of the vaginal tract or the uterus itself, and that then can develop into a really bad situation, what's called pyometra. Pyometra in Latin means pus-filled bag, so that describes what's going on. Basically, you've got an infection inside the uterus. The problem with the uterus is it is a small structure with a very tiny little tube and a small hole going to it. So if you get infection, it's not easy for that infection to drain out, and you can really get a dog in trouble. So, if you've AI'd your dog and you see a white discharge or any kind of a smelly discharge, then you have to be thinking about pyometry. And one of the things that you should do immediately is to take the dog's temperature. You see me talking about this a lot. That thermometer that costs you a few bucks is your most valuable tool in diagnosing problems with any dog. A temperature of a healthy, happy dog will be less than 101.5. A temperature above that is an elevated temperature, and that does require a trip to the vet and probably to get antibiotics. So anytime you have a temperature and you're not sure what's going on, enlist the help of the professional, the vet, and go see whether you need antibiotics. So that's probably what happened to that one. You probably bred the dog correctly, but you then got an infection and it basically ruined the pregnancy. Somebody talking about breeding 3 times in a row. Do I recommend that? Well, no, I don't. But I do recommend breeding 2 or 3 times, 2 days apart. What's the difference? So the difference is if you breed back-to-back breedings, then the dog's semen count will have depleted every day you take semen from that dog. So 3 days, the dog, if you pull 3 days in a row, the 3rd time the semen quality would not be as good as the 1st time, probably. And it's unnecessary, because the semen you put in the dog today will stay alive for at least 24 hours. So my recommendation is to breed twice, 2 days apart, and if you're not sure, breed a 3rd time 2 days later. Okay, so that would be over a 5-day period, not a 3-day period. And by the way, that gives your dog a chance to do a bit of recuperation to the male. Okay, we're talking here about runny noses. So somebody's asking about a runny nose and aspiration pneumonia, and what can you do to stop it and fix it. So I've got a whole video I did here a couple of weeks ago on aspiration pneumonia, milk aspiration. And so I would recommend that if you've got a dog that is getting milk coming out of its nose, go ahead and look at that video of mine. If you've got a dog that's got a runny nose and mucus, that is definitely time to get some antibiotics on board. Clavamax, amoxicillin, those kind of products. But you're going to have to get those from your vet. You're not going to get those over the counter. So probably going to have to enlist a vet. And if you're not sure what's going on here, go to the vet. Don't muck around with this. Aspiration pneumonia of puppies gets a secondary infection in their lungs, and those puppies can absolutely go downhill in a matter of a day and and die within a day or two. So you want to get right on top of that. Okay, so here's one. Somebody's asking about Isabellas. Okay, so I've got videos on this, but the short of this is there is two different versions of chocolate. There is what we used to call untestable chocolate, which now we call cocoa, that you can now get a test for, so it's not untestable anymore. And that does not make Isabella. Isabella requires what we still call testable chocolate, that will come back on a genetics test as little b, and those are the ingredients of the Isabella. And they're a much rarer version of chocolate. I would venture to guess that 1 in 10 dogs that are chocolate or platinum or lilac are the little b Isabella version, and the rest of them are the cocoa version. So you've got to know what you're breeding to. And incidentally, if you're looking to breed a dog that is an Isabella dog, little b dog, you've got to breed that dog with the correct corresponding little b dog to get chocolate dogs. If you breed with a cocoa dog, you're not going to get chocolates. So you've got to get this right. So if this doesn't make sense, go look at my video on Isabellas, because there's a lot of information right there on that. Alright, this is getting a little bit long, so we're going to do another video right after this, but I think we're going to shut this one down. If you like what we're talking about, then give us a thumbs up, that would be great. If subscribe to it would be great. Remember that we have a lot of really great products that we invent and use ourselves. They're at mybreedersupply.com. The majority of stuff that you order from us ships the same day, certainly by the next day. $10 flat rate shipping on anything you order. And if you're into raising Frenchies, I think, or any dogs, I think you'll find that there's a lot of really great information there, plus products that you really like. Again, thanks for watching. Be safe. Bye.